Okay, I am attempting to do something where I have all these little forms all around that are my demonstration. And I don't know how well I'll pull this off explaining it all, but this is very important because it is about something we can make and that we ought to make to show that we are ready to transform. Now, it all has to do with the Merkaba. And this seven-sided form, I'll show you this, the seven-sided form. It's the same form that Frank Chester is talking about when if you look him up on YouTube, there's many videos of him, and he talks about this seven-sided form here and how that it is the shape that our actual heart is. It is the geometric shape of the heart, and it's designed this way because it creates a vortex when the heart pumps and it contracts and expands and all. It creates the vortex that sends the blood throughout our system. Okay, and then he also explained that the tetrahedron is inside of the earth. There's a tetrahedron. And I'm connecting all this with the fact that there is something inside the earth that needs to be turned on, that needs to be touched by something entering into the earth. And since we can't go to the center of the earth physically, yet in our mind, in our imagination, we can see that tetrahedron in the center of the earth being activated. And all because we build this thing that I want to see people build. And I will explain why. I call it like a monolith, you know. Also, it's part of the Merkaba. But I built this little form to set it in. I'll set it in it right now. Now, this seven-sided form, to me, represents our getting our hearts aligned with the truth of who we truly are, which means to say that we're part of God. And we have the same geometries that God has. And I will explain to you that. Okay, I'll show you next this demonstration of the atom. I built this long ago. Inside of this form here, this is the flower of life, this that is white. You can see that inside of the flower of life, you can fit the vector equilibrium. And I sort of looked at this as though this is a good demonstration of the atom, because here's all the little spinning electrons around it. And there is the vector equilibrium it comes out of in the center there. Then it continues out, and you can make three of them come from just this center part of the flower of life. And as a matter of fact, this seven-sided form that Frank Chester talks about as being the shape of the heart is the heart of this. It's the heart of this atom that I have demonstrated. And here's the funny thing. I made this thing long ago, and almost, let me set my camera where I can use both hands, almost true to form is this shape. And I didn't know what shape I would be making later that would fit so perfectly in here. I say it fits, there you go. Now, this is the heart, the seven-sided form that fits right into the heart part of the atom, connecting the tetrahedron at the center of each atom, and we're all made of atoms, to what I call the God spot. Now, excuse me for all this strange filming, but I have to film my own self. I don't have a partner in this. In my madness, I don't have a partner here to film me. Now, what I want to show you about the vector equilibrium, I want to show you something about that. I set my camera down once more. This is the vector equilibrium. And when I make things, I make it out of wire that's very malleable. It's craft wire used for jewelry making. Only I use it for my structures that I make to try to explore all these platonic solids and all the sacred geometries. And I discovered this a while back, that with sacred geometry, when you're playing with it, and play is a wonderful way to learn. I tell you, play is the way to go. Things shouldn't be so hard. A little child should be able to understand this. So here is the vector equilibrium, which represents the closest packing of spheres, which in the middle you can imagine to be the God spot. And because 12 vectors from each of these places where there's wires that come together, there's a vector that goes into the center. The 12 vectors for the center up to the God spot. I've got an example of that up here that I made a while back. This is the vector equilibrium. And you can see the vectors go to the center one. So we're trying to touch the heart of God with our own heart. And that is why we need to build this thing I'm talking about here. Now, as a vector equilibrium ourselves, because we have God built into us, this world has given us a little stress. And see, now you play with the sacred geometry by pushing it in. Now, what does this make? I consider that this is the Holy Grail. This is that God flows through, because you see, it has a way that it's not like a cup that will hold anything, because you can't hold God. You can allow God to pass through you, and that's what we do. So this form, this vector equilibrium pushed in this way, has a way for a vortex to go this way, going down that way, and on the opposite side come out the opposite way. It's the expansion, contraction. It's the Holy Grail. It's the power of God flowing through each atom of our being. Because, as I showed you with the atom I made, the vector equilibrium fits right into the middle. I'll show you that again. There's the vector equilibrium, 3 of them, fitting right through the middle of the flower of life, which again is a wonderful symbol. Everything has the flower of life design. Every living thing has that. But that's another whole study. Now, this I call the Holy Grail. This is the cup that we ourselves are the embodiment of this Holy Grail. We allow the contraction and the expansion to come through us. Now, there's a further thing that this can be. I will show you that. You take again, you bend it, and you bring both sides together like this. Okay. Sorry, I don't have the very best way of filming this. But what this makes, you bring all these sides together. I have a better example of it that's already made. But what this makes is the torus, the double-sided torus. And here's a better demonstration of one, this right here. This torus also has this middle part where the God part of us, which is invisible, we can't see it, it's not a physical form, it can pass through this vortex. So this vector equilibrium is very important. Its geometry is built into the Merkaba very much. Now I'll show you the Merkaba. Here's a little form of the Merkaba that I made, just made out of clay. And I want to show you inside the Merkaba and outside the Merkaba. Here's a form of the Merkaba where I use red to demonstrate the octahedron, that is on the outside of the Merkaba, also as it is on the inside. And inside of the octahedron, of course, is another vector equilibrium. And each time you have a vector equilibrium, you have 4, and the vector equilibrium is inside the tetrahedron. You have 4 corners that you can do the entire thing over again. And I'll show you that in this form. Now this is a strange looking form. Let's see if I can show it. This is actually partly the Merkaba. But you see each of these triangles of the Merkaba, these tetrahedrons, will allow for a octahedron in the middle, and in the middle of that, the vector equilibrium, which houses the God spot. Okay, each of these little corners, and there's 4 of them, has this whole thing all over again in it, which again makes 4 little corners, which you can go on infinitely, smaller and smaller and smaller, and we know that small goes infinitely small, so tiny that there's just hardly any way of explaining it. But anyway, this just shows the infinity of this atom, this Merkaba. The Merkaba is called our ascension body, the geometries of our body of ascension. And that's why I want to have people create this 7-sided form, because it is one leg of this Merkaba. It is the heart of one of these. Let me see, I'll turn it around where you see the one that I've got filled out, which is right here. Okay, this has the vector equilibrium in it, and it is the center of one of the 8 points on the Merkaba. Okay, if we make one and set it up somewhere in this world, we're creating something that represents the heart of mankind, understanding the sacred geometry and calling forth for our own transformation. Okay, let me give you an example of that. We build this thing, and along comes the Merkaba, coming along, and you see on this side, there's the receiving side. There in the center is the God spot of the Merkaba, as it is in all the various vector equilibriums that the Merkaba makes, which is just thousands. You can only see a few here because I can't do anything that tiny. So you'll just have to use your imagination. So here's this God spot, this tetrahedron shape that I show in purple, and it comes down. After that we built this, it comes down and settles down upon our heart, now defined. Let me set this down. Okay, all my things don't stay still for me like I wish they would. Here we go. Okay, so there it is. There is the form, the 7-sided form, that is the center of one portion, just one of the 8 arms of the Merkaba, one of the 8 tetrahedrons. The tetrahedron that's inside the earth is activated by this Merkaba action and our understanding that we are part of God and we're part of one another. Now I'm going to take this off, and I want to show you what Frank Chester has to say about the 7-sided form. See, I got it right here. He talks about apex looping. Now, see, he's got that form that's this, and he's twirling it around.
It's starting to go inside the heart. You see how it sprays out like this on the side? That's because of those 2 circles. The outside circle, which is the outside part of the heart, and the inside circle. The inside circle prevents the vortex from getting any deeper. Keeps it away from the apex.
Keeps it away from the apex.
Now try to get the vortex to go in. There, see how it's starting to go in? Now I can get it in there, look at it. Starting to go in, takes time.
He's showing it with water. The vortex of water goes in, but it won't go all the way through. It meets there in the middle, but doesn't quite touch a vortex that will be coming out of the bottom.
The outside of the mitral valve, the size of it, starts to spray out and won't allow it to go any deeper. So here's the spray. See that spray? It won't go in. See that spray? That spray that goes around like this is preventing the vortex from going any deeper.
Okay, he doesn't show it. Another one coming out the other end, but this is the idea. This is the principle that I'm talking about here. And here's another version of it that I made where I showed the geometries. Let me turn this off. Well, let's look at this a little longer. He's going to do it again. He has a lot of videos, just Frank Chester. He makes a lot of little models just like I do to try to show what he's talking about. Now, some people might call this kind of science silly because they never really look into it as much as they really should. Because this is, oh, look at that, wow. There is a vortex coming from the bottom, yes, I see that.
Look at that vortex on the bottom. The vortex has 3 vortexes and they're spinning like that, just like the heart. There are 3 vortexes. I don't know if you can watch them, but they're there. So that's an inversion.
And he calls that an inversion. Well, there is a saying that when the heart of the earth is touched by a particle that goes to the heart of the earth, then we'll have our golden age.
Pretty neat, huh?
Well, that is pretty neat, Frank Chester. I like this man. It's hard to understand everything he says, but I like him. Now, to get that off. And I have a few more minutes. No, I don't. I've used 17 minutes up. Well, what I want us to do is to make this heart of one of the tetrahedrons of the Merkaba. Just make the 1/8 part of it, that is the heart, put it in the ground somewhere, and call this the Merkaba, even though it only shows a portion of the bigger one, but it is full of Merkabas inside, contracted Merkabas, which the vector equilibrium is. Actually, I'll show you a model of that real quick. This is the vector equilibrium, and you see, can you see that 4 points? If this were cut in half and placed upside down together, it would make the Merkaba. All these 8 tetrahedrons are the Merkaba parts. So this is what I want us to make. I want it to be made very large and put in a very prominent place and be called the heart of the Merkaba, the heart of man, the heart of the earth. Everything's falling down. I make things out of clay. I put this on a base that is a tetrahedron shaped, and I put one side I called Unconditional Love, and Grace, which happens to be my name, but also Grace means unmerited favor. And then the Merkaba. And this is what I wish we would, as a people, build. Maybe put it near one of those crop circles where they have them show up a lot in England. Put one of these to show that we do understand some of the geometries that they are showing us with their crop circle art, because I'm sure that they would understand, our space brothers would, they would understand this form as being the heart of the atom, the heart of the earth, the heart of the physical human body, as Frank Chester has explained it so well, and how it creates the expansion, contraction, It creates the heartbeat, and God is a pulsing God. He pulses, and we're coming to the end of the cycle. That is 3 different cycles coming together at the same time. I will end this, so I'm getting it a little bit too long. I'll talk more about it later. Gosh, I hope I didn't make that too big.